Chapter 12. Bhakti Yoga. Who are superior, the worshippers of Ishvara, or the worshippers of Akshara? Now Arjuna is supposed to have addressed the Lord thus, in the discourses beginning with the second and ending with the 10th, which treats of divine glories. You hast taught the worship of the Supreme Self, the imperishable, Akshara, Brahman, devoid of all upadhis, conditions, and you hast also taught here and there worship of yourself as the Lord of the universe, associated with the upadhi, condition, of that energy, sattva, which has the power of carrying on all evolutionary process, and of knowing everything. And in the 11th discourse treating of the universal form, your primal form as Isvara manifesting itself as the whole universe has also been shown by you for the same purpose of worship. And having shown that form, you hast exhorted me to do works for your sake only, 11.55, and so on. Wherefore, I ask of you with a desire to know which of these two ways is the better.
द्वादशोऽध्यायः भक्तियोगः अर्जुन उवाच एवं सततयुक्ताय भक्तास्त्वां पर्युपासते ये चाप्यक्षरमव्यक्तं तेषां के योगवित्तमाः.
Translation. Arjuna said, I those devotees who, always devout, thus contemplate you, and those also who, contemplate, the imperishable, the unmanifest, which of them are better versed in yoga? Thus, referring to what was said in the last preceding verse, he who does works for me, 11.55, and so on, always devout, engaged without intermission in doing works for the Lord's sake and in doing other things taught before, steadfast in mind. These devotees, seeking nobody else for their refuge, meditate on you in the universal form just manifested. There are others who, having abandoned all desires and renounced all actions, meditate on the imperishable, Akshara, Brahman also described above, who is unmanifest, avyakta, i.e., incomprehensible to the senses, as devoid of all upadhis or conditions. That indeed is said to be manifested, vyakt, which is visible to the senses, as the root of the word vyakt implies, but this, the imperishable, Akshara, is not so. These others meditate on the imperishable, the unmanifested, as defined by other attributes to be enumerated below. Of the two classes, who are better versed in yoga? The worshippers of Ishvara. The Lord says, as to the worshippers of the imperishable, Akshara, who see rightly and have abandoned desires, let them remain. We shall say later on what has to be said regarding them. But as regards the others,
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Mayyaveshya mano ye mam nityayukta upasate Shraddhaya parayopetah te me yuktatamamata.
Translation. The blessed Lord said, those who, fixing their thought on me, contemplate me, always devout, endued with supreme faith, those in my opinion are the best yogins. Those devotees, bhaktas, who fix their mind on me in the universal form, the Supreme Lord, and worship me as the governing Lord of all masters of yoga, who is omniscient, whose vision is free from the timira, purblindness, of attachment and other evil passions, they who always contemplate me steadfastly, in the manner described in the closing verse of the preceding discourse, endowed with supreme faith, these, I think, are the best yogins. Indeed, they pass their days and nights in incessant thought of me. Wherefore it is but proper to speak of them as the best yogins, the worshippers of Akshara. Are not the others, then, the best yogins? Stop, hear you what I have to say regarding them.
ये त्वक्षरमनिर्देश्यम् अव्यक्तम् पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गमचिन्त्यम् च कूटस्थमचलम् ध्रुवम् सन्नियम्येन्द्रियग्रामम् सर्वत्र समबुद्धयः ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रताः.
Translation. Those who ever contemplate the imperishable, the indefinable, the unmanifest, the omnipresent and the unthinkable, the unchangeable, the immutable, the eternal, having restrained all the senses, always equanimous, intent on the welfare of all beings, they reach myself. Because the imperishable, Akshara, is unmanifest, he is not accessible to words and cannot therefore be defined. He is ultra-manifest, not manifest to any of the organs of knowledge. They contemplate the imperishable everywhere all round. Contemplation, upasana, consists in approaching the object of worship by way of meditating it according to the teaching, Shastra, and dwelling for a long time steadily in the current of same thought, continuous, like a thread of descending oil. The imperishable who is the object of contemplation is thus qualified, he is omnipresent, pervading all like the Akasha. He is unthinkable, because he is unmanifest. Whatever is visible to the senses can be thought of by the mind also, but the Akshara is invisible to the senses and is therefore unthinkable. He is unchangeable. Kudastha, kuda, means a thing which is good to all appearance but evil within. Accordingly it refers here to that seed of samsara including avidya, nescience, and other things, which is full of evil within, designated by various terms such as maya, avyakrita, undifferentiated, as in Svetasvatropanishad 4.10, and in the Gita 7.14. Kudastha means he who is seated in maya as its witness, as its lord. Or, kudastha may mean remaining like a heap. Hence he is immutable and eternal. They who contemplate the imperishable, curbing all their senses, and always equanimous whether they come by the desirable or the undesirable, they come to myself. It needs indeed no saying that they come to me, for it has been said that the wise man is deemed my very self, 7.18. Neither is it necessary to say that they are the best yogins, seeing that they are one with the Lord himself. But
क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषामव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखम् देहवद्भिरवाप्यते.
Translation. Greater is their trouble whose thoughts are set on the unmanifest, for the goal, the unmanifest, is very hard for the embodied to reach. Great indeed is the trouble of those who are engaged in doing works for my sake, and so on, but greater still is the trouble of those who identify themselves with the imperishable and contemplate the supreme reality, the trouble arising from the necessity of having to abandon their attachment for the body. The goal, the imperishable, is very hard for the embodied to reach, for those who are attached to their bodies. Therefore their trouble is greater. Salvation by worship of Ishvara. Later on, we shall describe the conduct in life of the worshippers of the imperishable, Akshara Upaskas.
ये तु सर्वाणि कर्माणि मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्पराः अनन्येनैव योगेन मां ध्यायन्त उपासते तेषामहं समुद्धर्ता मृत्युसंसारसागरात् भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेशितचेतसाम्.
Translation. But those who worship me, renouncing all actions in me, regarding me supreme, meditating on me with exclusive devotion, yoga, for them whose thought is fixed on me, I become a ray long, O son of Pritha, the deliverer out of the ocean of the mortal samsara. Me, the Ishvara, the Lord. Exclusive, having no other object of worship except myself, God in the universal form. Devotion, yoga samadhi or steadfastness of mind. Those who are engaged in contemplating me exclusively, I, the Lord, will lift up from the ocean of mortal samsara, since their thoughts are fixed on me in the universal form. Samsara is an ocean, because it is very hard to cross beyond it. Because it is so, therefore, because of the necessity there is for abandoning attachment to the body.
मय्येव मनमाधत्स्व मयि बुद्धिं निवेशय निवसिष्यसि मय्येव अत ऊर्ध्वं न संशयः.
Translation. Fix your mind in me exclusively, apply your reason to me. You shalt no doubt live in me alone hereafter. Fix your mind, manas, your purposes and thoughts in me, the Lord in the universal form. Fix in me your reason, buddhi, also which resolves and determines. What will be the result? Listen, you shalt without fail abide in me as myself, on the death of this body. You shalt not doubt it. Abhyas Yoga.
अथ चित्तं समाधातुं न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम् अभ्यासयोगेन ततो मामिच्छाप्तुं धनञ्जय.
Translation. If you art unable to fix your thoughts steadily on me, then by yoga of constant practice do you seek to reach me, O Dhananjaya. If you cannot fix your thought on me steadily in the manner I have mentioned, then seek you to reach me in the universal form, by yoga of constant practice, Abhyas Yoga. Practice, Abhyas, consists in withdrawing thought from all quarters and fixing it again and again on one particular object. Abhyas Yoga means samandhana or steadfastness of mind acquired by such practice. Service of the Lord.
अभ्यासेऽप्यसमर्थोऽसि मत्कर्म परमो भव मदर्थमपि कर्माणि कुर्वन् सिद्धिमवाप्स्यसि.
Translation. If you art not equal to practice either, then be you intent on doing actions for my sake. Even doing actions for my sake, you shalt attain perfection. Even if you doest mere actions for my sake without practicing yoga, you shalt attain perfection. You shalt first attain purity of mind, then yoga or steadfastness, then knowledge, and then perfection, moksha. Abandonment of the fruits of actions.
अथैतदप्यशक्तोऽसि कर्तुं मद्योगमाश्रितः सर्वकर्मफलत्यागं ततः कुरु यतात्मवान्.
Translation. If you art unable to do even this, then refuged in devotion to me, do you abandon the fruits of all actions, self-controlled. If you canst not even be intent on doing actions for my sake as you hast just been taught, then do you perform actions renouncing them all in me, and abandon the fruit of those actions. Now he extols the abandoning of the fruits of all actions.
श्रेयो हि ज्ञानमभ्यासात् ध्यानात् ध्यानं विशिष्यते ध्यानात् कर्मफलत्यागस्त्यागात् शान्तिरनन्तरम्.
Translation. Better indeed is knowledge than practice, than knowledge is meditation more esteemed, than meditation the abandonment of the fruits of actions, on abandonment, peace follows immediately. Knowledge is better than practice accompanied with ignorance, better than that knowledge is meditation, dhyana, with knowledge, better than meditation with knowledge is the abandonment of the fruits of actions, from such an abandonment of the fruits of actions, accompanied with the qualification mentioned above, cessation of samsara and of the cause thereof follows immediately, it admits of no delay. Abandonment of the fruit of all actions is taught as a means to bliss in the case of an ignorant person engaged in action, only when unable to tread the paths taught before, but not at first. Wherefore the act of abandoning the fruit of all actions is merely extolled by the declaration, in this verse, of the superiority of one over another, for it has been taught as the course to be adopted when a man is unable to follow the paths already taught. In what way does it, the declaration, form a mere praise? In the Kathopanishad 6.14, it is said that immortality results from the abandonment of all objects of desire, and this is a truth quite familiar to all. And all objects of desire are fruits of actions enjoined in the Shruti and in the Smriti. In the case of the enlightened person who is steadily engaged in contemplation, peace immediately follows the abandonment of desires. Now mere abandonment of desires constitutes a factor of even an ignorant man's abandonment of the fruits of actions, and because of this point of similarity, mere abandonment of the fruits of all actions is praised with a view to create a desire to follow the course in the same way that, in saying that the ocean was drunk by the Brahmana sage Agastya, even the Brahmanas of this age are praised for the mere reason that they too are Brahmanas. Thus, it has been taught that Karma Yoga accompanied with the abandonment of the fruits of actions is a means to bliss. Abhyasa, practice, occurring in the text and the commentary may mean either 1. The act of listening to the teaching of the Shrutis with a view to obtain knowledge, or 2. The practice of dhyana with a firm resolve. Two different readings are found here in the MSS. Of the Bhashya, L. Vivekapurvakat, and 2. Avivekapurvakat. The former would mean accompanied with discrimination. The qualification being self-controlled, 12.11. The abandonment of the fruits of actions forms here the subject of praise, because it is the path intended to be taught in this connection, as taught in the Shruti. The life of the Akshara Upaskas. Here, it is by presupposing a distinction between Ishvara and Atman, the Lord and the Self, that yoga which consists in concentrating thought on the Lord, on the universal form, and the performance of works for the sake of the Lord have been taught. As it is hinted in the words, if you art unable to do this either, 12.11, that Karma Yoga is associated with ignorance, ajnana, we should understand that the Lord here means to say that Karma Yoga is not meant for the worshipper of the Akshara, for him who sees no distinction between the Lord and the Self. Similarly, the Lord shows the impossibility of the worship of the Akshara to a Karmayogin. To explain, having in the words, they reach. Myself, 12.3, declared that the worshippers of the Akshara are independent as regards the attainment of liberation, Kaivalya. The Lord, 12.7, has shewn in the words, for them I become the deliverer, 12.7, that the others are dependent on the Lord, on an external being. If these were deemed as the very self of the Lord, they would be the very Akshara themselves owing to their realization of the identity, so that it would have been inappropriate to speak of them as persons to be delivered by the Lord. Moreover, the Lord, who is preeminently a well-wisher of Arjuna, recommends to him only Karma Yoga. 4.15, based on an idea of distinction and quite dissociated from right knowledge. Nor would any man like to be subordinate to another after knowing himself to be the Lord through proper sources of right knowledge, for the two are mutually opposed states. Therefore it is with reference to the worshippers of the Akshara, to the Samnyasins who are devoted to right knowledge and have abandoned all desires, that he proceeds to teach those attributes such as absence of hatred of any being, which form the direct means to immortality.
Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitrah karuna eva cha nirmamo nirahankarah samadukha sukhakshami santushtah satatam yogi yatatma dridhanishchayah mayyarpita mano buddhir yo madbhaktas same priyah.
Translation. He who hates no single being, who is friendly and compassionate to all, who is free from attachment and egoism, to whom pain and pleasure are equal, who is enduring, ever content and balanced in mind, self-controlled, and possessed of firm conviction, whose thought and reason are directed to me, he who is, thus, devoted to me is dear to me. This is another reason why Karma Yoga cannot be combined with Akshara Upasana in one and the same person at one and the same time. Because the attributes mentioned below cannot, all of them, be cultivated by the followers of Karma, who are ignorant of the self. He hates nothing, not even that which causes him pain. B regards all beings as himself. He is friendly and compassionate. He is full of compassion for the distressed, i.e., he has offered security of life to all beings. He is a Samanyasin. He does not regard anything as mine and is free from egoism, from the notion of I. Pain and pleasure do not cause in him hatred and attachment. He remains unaffected when abused or beaten. He is always content. He thinks he has enough whether he obtains or not the means of bodily sustenance. He is also satisfied whether he comes by a good thing or not. He is a yogin, always steadfast in thought. He has a firm conviction regarding the essential nature of the self. This Samanyasin has directed to me exclusively his manas purposes and thoughts as well as his buddhi, the faculty of determining. Such a devotee is dear to me. The same truth which was indicated in 7.17, I am very dear to the wise man and he is dear to me, is here described at length.
Yasman nodvijate loko lokan nodvijate chayah harshamascha bhayodvegai mukto yah sacha me priyah.
Translation. He by whom the world is not afflicted and who is not afflicted by the world, who is free from joy, envy, fear and sorrow, he is dear to me. He, the Samanyasin. Joy consists in the elation or exhilaration of the mind, antahkarana, on attaining an object of desire, and is indicated by horripilation, tears, and so on.
Anapekshah shuchirdaksha udasino gatabhyathah sarvarambha parityagi yo madbhaktas same priyah.
Translation. He who is free from wants, who is pure, clever, unconcerned, untroubled, renouncing all undertakings, he who is, thus, devoted to me is dear to me. He is indifferent to the body, the senses, the sense objects and their mutual connections. He is possessed of purity both internal and external. He is able to decide rightly on the spot in matters demanding prompt attention. He does not take the side of a friend and the like. He habitually renounces all actions calculated to secure objects of desire, whether of this world or of the next. Moreover,
यो न हृष्यति न द्वेष्टि न शोचति न काङ्क्षति शुभाशुभपरित्यागी भक्तिमान् यः स मे प्रियः.
Translation. He who neither rejoices, nor hates, nor grieves, nor desires, renouncing good and evil, he who is full of devotion is dear to me. He does not rejoice on attaining what is desirable. He does not fret on attaining what is undesirable. He does not grieve on having to part with a beloved object. He does not desire the unattained.
समः शत्रौ च मित्रे च तथा मानापमानयोः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु समः सङ्गविवर्जितः तुल्यनिन्दास्तुतिर्मौनी सन्तुष्टो येन केनचित् अनिकेतस्थिरमतिर्भक्तिमान् मे प्रियो नरः.
Translation. He who is the same to foe and friend, and also in honor and dishonor, who is the same in cold and heat, in pleasure and pain, who is free from attachment, to whom censure and praise are equal, who is silent, content with anything, homeless, steady-minded, full of devotion, that man is dear to me. He has no attachment for objects of any kind. He is content with the bare means of bodily sustenance. It is said, in the Mahabharata, who is clad with anything, who is fed on any food, who lies down anywhere, him the gods call a Brahmana. Shanti Parva, Moksha Dharma, 245-12. He has no fixed abode, he is houseless as has been said in another Smriti. His thought is fixed steadily on the Supreme Reality. The enumeration, which was commenced in 12.13, of the various attributes of the Samnyasins to the worshippers, the Akshara who are constantly devoted to the knowledge of the Supreme Reality, is concluded as follows.
ये तु धर्म्यामृतमिदं यथोक्तं पर्युपासते श्रद्धधाना मत्परमा भक्तास्तेतीव मे प्रियाः.
Translation. They, verily, who follow this immortal law described above, endued with faith, looking up to me as the Supreme, and devoted, they are exceedingly dear to me. They, the Samnyasins. Immortal, as leading to immortality. Above, in the portion beginning with 12.13, looking up to me as the Supreme, whose highest unsurpassed goal is myself, the imperishable self. Devoted, resorting to the highest devotion, which consists in the knowledge of the Supreme Reality. What was implied in the words, I am exceedingly dear to the wise man, 7.12, has been explained at length and concluded here thus, they are exceedingly dear to me. The meaning of the verse is, because he who follows the immortal law which has been now described becomes exceedingly dear to Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, therefore this immortal law should be zealously followed by every seeker of liberation, by every one who desires to attain to the supreme abode of Vishnu.
ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे भक्तियोगो नाम 12ोऽध्यायः।
Thank you for watching. Please support us. Please like, share, subscribe.